Okay, so I'm in level 1 start, and as you could see in the middle of the scene, I've created a very simple setup for us to test our lights. This is what's referred to as a Cornell box, and it's going to allow us to test and see if our lights are reacting accurately in a digital environment. It's made out of simple Unity cubes, and I've just added a red material on the left wall and a green material on the right, and that's it. I've also gone ahead and set our skybox back to the default so we don't have any excess color to deal with as we are experimenting with our lights. Now let's go ahead and talk about our directional light. It's most commonly used for creating sunlight, which is why its icon is actually represented by a sun. Directional lights are unique from other lights in Unity in that they do not decay. They're an infinite light source. This means that the statue in the foreground of this Cornell box is receiving the exact same level of light as the doorway in the back. If I move the directional light around, you could see that the position of this light doesn't matter in the scene. You could actually place it anywhere that you like. The only thing that matters is the rotation, which we've seen before. Now I'm going to rotate the directional light around so we could actually see the sun in the sky again. Position a little better here. There it is, because I want to draw your attention to the fact that the color of the directional light is directly going to affect the color of the sun in the sky. This means if I set the color to something really bright, like a red here, we can see that the color of our sun has changed to a pinkish reddish hue as well. I'm going to set this back to white. And I'll rotate our light so it's facing the contents of our Cornell box again. And let's go ahead and zoom back in here. We could adjust the brightness of the light by changing its intensity. So if I drag this up, we could see that the light becomes brighter and darker. Notice though that the brighter the intensity, the more washed out the light looks. You can see that by default, a directional light has soft shadows turned on. And you probably noticed something kind of strange going on with the shadow behind this statue here. I'm going to zoom in so we can see a little bit better. And there we go. We could see that our solid statue has some gaps in the shadow. So what's going on here? When the statue was created externally, the artist created it in 3 separate sections: the head, the body, and the base. And we could actually see that reflected in the gaps in the shadow. Now, the mesh itself doesn't have any of these gaps, but the Unity shadow system is recognizing that they are separate objects, and it's trying to be accurate about displaying this fact. However, obviously, we don't want it to seem like these pieces are separate. Fortunately, we can adjust these with the bias and normal bias. So I'm going to bring the normal bias down a little bit, and we can see that our shadow is starting to change. And there we go. If I bring it all the way down to 0, we don't have these gaps anymore. But if we look down near the corner on the floor, we have this kind of strange artifacting going on. So I'm going to adjust the bias a little bit until this starts to go away. And this takes a little bit of messing around with, but eventually you'll find a good balance that will hide those extra gaps, but keep that artifacting away. So there we go, we now have a fixed shadow. Due to the nature of directional lights, you may find yourself in a situation where you might want one object to not be affected by it. Fortunately in Unity, we could choose what we want our lights to affect. At the very bottom of the light component, you can see that we have a culling mask option, which is currently set to everything. That means our directional light is affecting everything that's in the scene. If we click on this drop-down, however, you could see that we could actually select things for it to ignore. If we set the directional light to nothing, nothing in our scene will be lit. Now, just to show how this would work on individual objects, I'm going to set the culling mask back to everything, and I'm going to temporarily select this statue right here, and I'm going to change its layer to UI. Now I'm going to go back to our directional light, and I'm going to set the culling mask to uncheck UI, and we can see now that our statue is not receiving light and it's not casting a shadow, but everything else is. So this can be really handy in situations where you want finer tuned control over your lights. Just so we don't forget later, I'm going to return the culling mask back to everything, and I'm going to set the statue back to a default layer. In our next clip, we'll talk about global illumination.